okay if you don't have to. Tonight, for our in-depth coverage, we are looking at the race to become the next Attorney General of Oklahoma. Next month, former federal prosecutor Nick Coffey will launch the Tulsa chapter of his campaign to be the state's next top cop. The seat is wide open after current Attorney General Gentner Drummond announced last year he's running for governor. You've already seen him on this program. Joining me tonight to speak for the first time unedited and to introduce himself is Nick Coffey. Joining me on the program for the first time is Democratic Attorney General candidate Nick Coffey. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for the opportunity. Happy to be here.
Let me ask the question that some viewers may be asking. Who are you?
Well, first off, I'm an Oklahoman and I'm a prosecutor, right? I'm a fifth-generation Oklahoman, born and raised Oklahoma City, but family with roots in Tulsa and then in the farming industry in Okarche, northwest Oklahoma. Look, for the majority of my legal career, I was a federal prosecutor. With DEA, FBI, Homeland Security, I prosecuted the most complex drug and money laundering investigations in the state, targeting illegal black market Chinese marijuana grows, the violent prison gangs operating in our state, and the Mexican drug cartels operating here, bringing methamphetamine and fentanyl in, taking orders from their bosses in Mexico. But what I also am is I'm a concerned citizen. And I think, like a lot of people probably watching right now, I'm concerned that we've got people running for office for the wrong reasons, that aren't in there to do the job the right way. And I think right now, particularly for a position like the Attorney General, which is it is a real job that affects real people's lives and thus requires real experience. Elect a prosecutor to do that job. Do not elect a politician, because a prosecutor is going to fight for you.
Well, let me ask you, I always ask candidates what got them off the couch this time, what to get in the game. Was it your opponents, or what was the moment where you said, I can't sit back on this one and just be a voter anymore?
This past spring, I was conducting the largest drug trial that has occurred in the Western District of Oklahoma in decades. This was a group that the FBI and I had investigated for about 5 years, and they were the biggest methamphetamine trafficking group in the state. And as I'm thinking about what's next for me after this trial and thinking about what our state needs, I looked at the people that had entered the race, had announced their intention to run. And, this is a race to be the state's top prosecutor, right? And there was no one in the race that had worked with law enforcement on a day-to-day basis. Nobody that had been, a trial attorney that was ready to lead an office about 150 other trial attorneys. And I thought, look, again, this is a real job that requires real experience. And I owe it to my state, and I owe it to myself to get into the race and show everyday Oklahomans that there are people just like you that want to actually make a difference.
What would you say your top 3 issues are in this race? If you have top 3.
I have 4, actually.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Coffee's 4 C's, right? So children, crime, costs, and corruption. Very quickly, right? So children, right? You need to be advocating aggressively and bringing suits against companies that are exposing our kids to dangers online. You need to be making sure that our education system, that political leaders aren't messing with it. Costs, you need to be laser focused on consumer protection at the forefront of the Attorney General's, office. Making sure that insurance rates are set appropriately. Making sure you're advocating for the consumer at the Corporation Commission, right? Children, costs. Crime, organized crime. That's what I did for 7 years, right? Dealt with black market illegal Chinese marijuana grows, Mexican drug cartels, right? I am ready to carry that into the AG's office and focus on organized crime. But the other thing, the last C, if you will, corruption, that I'll be laser focused on, is a federal prosecutor. When I had to, no one gets a break in federal court. Everybody is subject to the same laws. And for me, seeing the way that there have been many state officials over the last 4, 5, 6 years that have broken civil, criminal statutes, ethics rules, it was frustrating for me to see that it didn't seem like our elected officials, when they did this, were held to the same standard. That's another reason I wanted to run, because justice is when you treat everybody the same. And again, this is why it's so important you have an independent Attorney General in there and not a politician, not someone that's going to hand out, favors to their friends at the Capitol, but an actual prosecutor that's going to apply the law fairly with equality towards all.
So let me ask you this. You are on the eastern side of the state, the tribal side of the state. There is a desire for better days when it comes to handling McGirt and things like that. Mm-hmm. What is your plan for at least repairing the relationship or at least moving forward with the McGirt landscape that we have right now?
A lot of people are going to probably, in answer to that question, are going to say, I'm going to fix everything. But the reality is that only the United States Congress can fix this problem. But what I can do is bring a sense of compact and collaboration to both the tribes and local law enforcement. The tribes are our partners, and local law enforcement keep us safe. But also, I hope that people keep this in mind. I was meeting with a rural police chief a few weeks ago, and I asked, how is it right now working with the tribes? And the police chief said, it's fantastic, right? And that means that through the spirit of collaboration, crimes are going prosecuted and victims are not going ignored. And that's because we've got adults and professionals with both the tribes and local law enforcement, and they stepped up. So anything I can do to further that compacts and collaboration, it's incumbent upon the Attorney General to do that, because at the end of the day, right, going back to my second C, if you will, crime, right? You got to make sure that crimes are going addressed. And while these jurisdictional gaps exist after McGirt, the AG can have a role there in making sure that our citizens are being protected.
Let me ask you this. You are running as a Democrat. Do you plan on challenging the Trump administration should you take office on any actions you've seen since President Trump has returned to the White House?
Well, so, right now you need to keep in mind that the AG has pretty limited action, especially as it relates to immigration enforcement action. But what I can say, though, is the AG, as the state's top prosecutor, right, needs to be laser focused on making sure that the people that work for him are actually, when it comes to state agencies and, state, law enforcement officials, are actually following the law. And if it is the role of the Attorney General to be the state's top prosecutor, it is also the role to make sure that you are a aggressive defender of people's civil rights. And so, look, I never want to show my hand before I get into office, but that is the role of the Attorney General. I'll be a defender of civil liberties in addition to holding people accountable.
We've seen, even in the same party, Gentner Drummond and Kevin Stitt going at it. Mm-hmm. Do you believe the Attorney General's office has to be adversarial with the governor, like it has been, or what? How would you see yourself in this relationship here, if you were in office right now?
It does not have to be adversarial, but again, that is the beauty of having, essentially, the constitutional framework we have in Oklahoma. I mean, we have an Attorney General. The way the Constitution is written does not work for the governor. He is independent, and so, look, the Attorney General should never, make headlines for the sake of headlines. But again, this goes back to my point about corruption and public officials not following the law. If there are public officials breaking the law, that means that they're not working for the interests of Oklahoma's citizens. And if they're not working for the interests of Oklahoma's citizens, they're probably looking for their own interests, right? And so it's the role of the Attorney General to actually hold them accountable.
Do you have a position, because we did see a break in the state on the St. Isidore of Seville issue, and it looks like that issue will come back again, this time with possibly a Jewish online charter school. Do you have a position on that? Will you continue to, I guess, break from what we've seen a lot of others do versus Gentner Drummond doing? Where do you stand on an issue like that?
Well, I believe in the separation of church and state. I'm a practicing Catholic. I had the benefit of a Catholic education growing up. I will never fault anybody for wanting to give their kid a Catholic education. But the reality is, in the Oklahoma Constitution, we have a specific constitutional provision that the Oklahoma Supreme Court has relied on in the St. Isidore case, right? And, are we this far removed from the Monument Park of the Capitol about a decade ago? People forget that this Monument Park existed with the Ten Commandments, and what happened? We had a satanic group that was trying to place the monument right next to the Ten Commandments. Look, that's a sort of a slippery slope I think we're inviting if we start having state-funded religious charter schools. And I say that as a practicing Catholic, somebody whose faith means a lot to them. But it also needs to be the role of the Attorney General to, be a guard dog and a watchdog over tax dollars. And look, I don't want my, respectfully, I don't want my tax dollars going to the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster or a satanic group. Whoever says that this is a religion, right? Equality for all, separation of church and state. That's why we have those provisions in the Oklahoma Constitution.
Nick Coffey, I'm out of time. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. As a reminder, you can find all of our candidate interviews and interviews with lawmakers on the Fox 23 News Tulsa YouTube page. We interviewed one of Mr. Coffey's opponents just last summer, and that interview is online now. This one will also be uploaded after this program if you'd like to reference it again.